Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Last Flag Flying. And I'm a huge fan of Richard Linklater, and I'm getting to the point where it's like his films come out, I want to see them, no matter what it's about. The first one I did get to see in theaters was Everybody Wants Some, and I actually loved that film. I really appreciated that. And I was hoping to love this film. I didn't love it, but honestly I'd probably buy it and would want to watch it again. Strictly because the characters in this are so much fun and interesting to go along with. But it's a mixed bag of a film, and we're going to talk about that. I think Richard Linklater does a nice job of bringing the story to fruition, even for Richard Linklater, kind of drags the story out, and there's very convenient things that pop up that extends the story. That's my big thing. I don't think this needed to be over 2 hours, and it does drag along by the end, and it's kind of like, are we going to get there? And things keep popping up, and I think that's one of the bigger weaknesses, at least from the writing, is there's a lot of unnecessary moments just to keep drawing out these different kinds of ideas and stuff like that. Some of the things I thought were really impactful along the way. Some of them, it's like, do I really need to see them all go by cell phones? It became a plot device to have the cell phones, but it's like, do I really need to see a whole sequence of the three of them arguing, oh, should we have cell phones? Do you think cell phones is a good idea, kind of thing? And it's like, okay, that was a scene in this film that extended this film like 5-10 more minutes than it probably should have been. But it's like trying to balance those things from a total perspective. I think this film really hits emotionally, and I did feel connected with these characters, and especially what Steve Carell was going through, and them looking back on all the things that they went through as soldiers. And overall, this is a character-driven film, but it is well shot. The cinematography is done by Shane F. Kelly, and I think it's a well shot film. There's some nice shots, and I think this film was smart in terms of where to point the camera, because there's some moments where it's like, there's one in particular that I think was a very impactful scene of them finally getting to see the body. Steve Carell wants to see his son's body, and the camera's focusing on Bryan Cranston and Lawrence Fishburne off in the way. You don't need to have that moment where it's like, we're gonna watch him look at his like destroyed son, and it's like, we didn't need to see that. All we needed to see was the camera turning and us seeing the aftermath of it, and we know how emotionally impactful it could have been by the performance of Steve Carell. And I think those were smart cinematography moments. The writing was done by Richard Linklater and Daryl Ponick's son, and like I said, the story kind of drags along and doesn't need to necessarily be as long as it is. It's a bunch of character moments really throughout this film, and that's what carries this film, is the character moments. I think these three characters are interesting people, really well performed, and they all have their moments, and I think they're interesting characters, and they have interesting conversations between each other. And because you have, really, it's one's very solemn and like plays it down, and that's Steve Carell. He has a few moments where he really gets to like dig in and have some fun, but really it's Bryan Cranston and Lawrence Fishburne. And it's interesting how this film is set up, because there's three characters, and you have Steve Carell, who's kind of the blank slate kind of character, and you have an angel and a demon sitting on his shoulders, and it's like Lawrence Fishburne's being I'm a preacher, God's going to be with you, everything's going to be okay, and Bryan Cranston trying to rile him up and be more like, I'm going to fight this and blah 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 blah, and be more aggressive about things. And I think that was an interesting dynamic in the film. At moments it was a little heavy-handed. It's like, duh, this metaphor, I get it, but I think it was really well done, and the three of them really sold it for me. And the dialogue is super interesting, even if the actual stuff they're talking about isn't interesting. It's just the way they interact with it, like cell phones. But overall, I think this film really lives and dies by the performances, and the music was done by Graham Reynolds, who I think it was a nice score. The music choices were really well done in this film. I like the use of Eminem. I thought that was interesting. There was a moment there to add some depth to some of these characters. And overall, I think the music was well done. Really, Bryan Cranston, Lawrence Fishburne, Steve Carell sell this film. They sell these characters. They all do a great job. They're the reasons to watch this film, not for the story really, but honestly, this film really is a bit long in the tooth. It's a little too long, kind of drags. Doesn't have a whole lot of focus and aiming to it for a lot of the film, but it's really made by the character moments and the characters in this film and their interactions, because that's why you're there. I'm gonna give Last Flag Flying a B minus.